SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Mid-Delta Auction Company is holding a spring equipment auction Thursday, March the 20th from their location across from Cannon Motors in Greenwood. Visit mdauction.com for more information. That's mdauction.com. We'll see you there.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive.
Thursday morning. Today is the 20th of March. Today is the first day of spring. Today feels like just a regular old January day. I mean, it's been warm. It's been beautiful. It's been windy. Today it's cold. In the 30s, low 40s, going to be down around freezing across much of the state of Mississippi tonight. Brr! Nothing says welcome to spring like, do you want to build a snowman? Maybe not quite that cold. Good morning. This is Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi. I'm Richard. He's Lance. Hello, my friend.
What's up, brother, man? Yeah, you can burn a snowman today. That's one of the days that we celebrate if you're in that neighborhood. Thursday is Snowman Burning Day. So.
Okay. I'm not sure exactly how that works.
We wouldn't down here, I don't think. But I guess you just take like a bunch of kerosene or diesel and just burn your snowman. From the picture, it looks pretty self-explanatory. It's a snowman ablaze. I guess that's when you've had enough of winter. And
I'm not sure how the science works on that. So you're burning water.
Yeah.
I guess if you want to burn water, you're going to have oil on the water. And so if you put kerosene on the snowman and kerosene's got an oil content, then you burn it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll go with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've never burned a snowman, but apparently that's the day.
No.
Yeah, like I said, spring equinox or vernal equinox, as I learned yesterday. Yeah, I've always wondered, like, is Vern short for vernal? Like the name?
I'm sure in some places.
Yeah. Okay.
Some places, some cases. Holly Springs, you're checking in at 54 degrees today. Windy, low tonight of 30. What about over in Macon, Mississippi? You're going to get up to 56. Low 31 tonight. Going to be windy there. What about our friends, Lance, in Teoc? It's going to be 59 today. Mostly sunny. Not going to quite reach freezing, so congratulations on that. 34 degrees. And South Mississippi, Kill, you're checking in with a high of 66. Going to be a nice day, sunny but windy, around 17 miles an hour. Low tonight of 37 degrees in Kill, Mississippi. Good news is it's going to change. Weekend's just around the corner. Saturday is going to be absolutely gorgeous. But we have had a run the last few days of like seriously windy days. What causes that?
It's the monster in the ocean.
Well, he's blowing harder than normal.
We woke him up. Yeah, the astronauts came home and the dolphins woke him up or something. No, but I mean it's been windier than normal. I do the weather for the Delta, and I've seen it for the last week and a half. It's wind gusts of 30 miles an hour every day, and you don't see that very often. Normally it's 5 miles an hour, light wind out of the northwest.
Yeah. A little breeze. On this day in 1928, a birthday to celebrate who? Well, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. American children's TV host and Presbyterian minister, born in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, Mr. Rogers, would have been celebrating his birthday today. Were he still with us, he would be 97 years old. 1928, passed away in 2003. The man who, the second he walked in the door, he wanted to put on a sweater and some sneakers just so he could get comfortable and slide right in to the land of make-believe.
And a long day at the office. Got to come in and get comfy and Put on the nice little, I guess he made that sweater kind of cool. The little cardigan thing.
Yeah.
The little 6-button, 3-button
cardigan. Yeah. And he always had some little slip-on sneakers. He'd take his
Skechers before they were
his dress shoes off and slip into some sneakers. And I tell you what, Mr. Rogers got to do some cool stuff. He would take you to the crayon factory and let you see how crayons were made. He'd take you to the chocolate factory and get to see how the chocolate bars were made. All the different production facilities where they could show you the line of stuff, and you're like, ooh, man, that's awesome. And then he'd just come back in and, what was it, Lady, who was the hideous character with the big rosy red cheeks? Lady Mc, I'll have to get back to you on that.
My research was done on Colonel Sanders today, so you got me with the Mr. Rogers. I'm going to have to freshen up, YouTube up some good old Mr. Rogers neighborhood clips.
Also born on this day in 1948, Canadian Hockey Hall of Fame defenseman Art Hall.
And Bobby Orr today also.
Sorry, Bobby Orr. I don't know what I typed there or didn't type, but yes, Bobby Orr. He won the Art Ross Trophy. He was a Stanley Cup champion with the Bruins in 1970 and 1972, an 8-time All-Star in the NHL, and he won the James Norris Trophy as well. Born in Ontario, one of the all-time greats in hockey. I've seen some stuff on him, and he looks like a cool dude, too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I wonder, playing that long, you wonder how many teeth are still real in there, because coming up in that age, too, it was more physical then than it is now.
Thank you, Tom and Jackson. Lady Elaine.
Lady Elaine. There you go.
Lady Elaine. On this day in 1930, American fast food restaurant chain KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, was founded. Not, Lance, as Kentucky Fried Chicken.
No, sir.
But as Sanders Court and Cafe by Colonel Harlan Sanders in North Corbin, Kentucky.
He actually, falsified his birth date so he could enlist in the U.S. Army at age 16 in 1906. And after that, he spent some time doing some odd jobs before he obviously got into the cooking business. But he was in the railroad business. He was shoveling out junk and here and there, and decided to move to Jasper, Alabama. Did more locomotive work. He just kind of kept going and became a fireman and steam engine broker. He was busy as a young man.
Well, that's good. And then he came up with Extra Crispy and some really good biscuits and some not too bad coleslaw, and off he goes.
Don't forget about the potatoes and gravy, too. Those are
potatoes and gravy?
A little scoop of gravy perfectly put in there every time.
The diversity of Kentucky Fried Chicken's menu in more recent years, not really for me.
No, give me the chicken and the basics, like you just mentioned.
I mean, if you went to a church potluck, there was somebody that brought a bucket of chicken from KFC.
Oh yeah, I did that in Oxford for years. I had a little church I'd go to, one of my clients, and there were a lot of older folks, and I'd go get a bucket of KFC, man, and you're the hit, the belle of the ball. Only
thing that was left was some Crispies in the bottom of the bucket when it was all said and done, and not many of those. Yep. Not at all.
That was kind of a normal Sunday for us in McGee, Mississippi. We'd go down and see the grandparents, and then to go over when it was granddad's turn for lunch. He would just, let's go get some KFC, and he'd come back in 30 minutes with as much chicken and coleslaw and biscuits.
How good is that?
And the mashed potatoes and gravy that you could handle, man. We'd eat until we just about popped and felt like kings.
There is a lot of gnashing of teeth and wringing of hands right now over the stock market, although it rebounded a bit yesterday. Go figure. Go figure. Just give it a couple of days and it'll come back a little bit. I am not trying to pretend as if the stock market has not had a rough few days. 30 years ago is a long time. I get that. And when I say, 30 years ago, it sounds like a long time. But when I say 1995 really doesn't sound like it's that long ago. Do you know what the Dow Jones Industrial Average was 30 years ago today when it set a record high? 4,083 and 68.
Yeah, I was about to say mid 4,000s.
Yep, not even mid 4,000s yet. Low 4,000s, not even 4,100. We're at 41,964. Big rally for the market yesterday. Here's the thing. So yesterday, the market jumped 383.32. 30 years ago today, that would have been an 8% jump in the market and would have been the biggest day, like one of the biggest days in the history of trading. And on this day in 2020, 5 years ago, after 20 years with the New England Patriots, 6-time Super Bowl winning quarterback Tom Brady officially agrees to move to the Tampa Bay Bucks on a 2-year, $50 million fully guaranteed deal. Worked out. He would go on to lead the Bucks to a world championship, winning Super Bowl MVP for the 5th time in his career, and a 31-9 victory over the Kansas City Chiefs in the 2020 season. Take a look at some news headlines, and we come back with you. Mornings with Richard Cross. Good morning to you. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Waking up Mississippi. From South Haven to Scuba, it's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Slice like a ninja, cut like a razor blade so fast. Other DJs say, damn, a rhyme was a drug, I'd sell it by the gram. Keep my composure when it's time to get loose. Magnetized by the mic while I kick my juice. If there was a problem, yo, I'll solve it. Check out the hook while DJ revolves it. Ice, ice, baby.
Yo! Thursday morning, what's up?
Word.
Easing out of that bed. Hoping that you remembered to set the timer on the coffee pot before you went to sleep last night. Why is that such a laborious task sometimes? Why is it that when you're ready to go to bed, taking the extra 2 minutes, if even that, to get the coffee pot ready to go, where at the most all you have to do is press a button, and at best if it's got a timer you wake up and you go, coffee's ready. Why do we have trouble doing that at night? Maybe you don't. Maybe that's a me thing.
It's a long way away. You got to procrastinate.
Lazy. Yeah. Coffee tasted extra good this morning. No doubt about that.
You got it out of the house. It makes a difference, right? You were on the road.
Brother,
for a couple of days there. So
that big old cup of coffee yesterday morning was about the only thing that got me going.
I was just glad they were open for you.
I was too. Hey, the C Spire text line is open to you, 601-879-4395. Every sports fan can tell you fast speeds win games. It's why C Spire brings you fiber home internet. Nationwide 5G wireless and IT solutions that move as fast as your business. Learn more at cspire.com. C-Spire, inspired by you. We got a busy day in SuperTalk land. We'll tell you about what's coming up. I want to tell you about the guests that are coming up this morning. Looking forward to this show. This should be a good one. Got some good conversations on the way, including Senator David Blount. He represents District 29 there in Hinds County. He's chairman of the Senate Gaming Committee and vice chair of the Senate Education Committee. Candidly, we are going to talk about the other side with David Blount a little bit. All of the conversation, largely that we have had about tax reform this year, has been about the disagreements that exist between Republicans and what the bill should look like, what should be in it, what can you get passed. David Blount represents the other side of the issue altogether. He disagrees with the passage of a tax reform bill that gets rid of the state of Mississippi's income tax. Why is that? We will ask him that question coming up at 7:20 this morning. 8 o'clock hour, Lars Larson will join the conversation. You know, Lars has a saying on his show. He says naysayers go to the front of the line. So when he's taking calls, people that disagree with him, they go to the front of the line in terms of waiting. Kind of feel like that's what we're doing today. So David Blount in the 7 o'clock hour, Lars Larson to start the 8 o'clock hour, and then Scott Waller is going to join us. And I am quite interested to visit with Scott today. You know that PBM legislation, pharmacy benefit manager legislation, has been in the news as of late. The plight of independent pharmacists is a fraught one right now. Had another conversation last night with a pharmacist that works in and owns an independent pharmacy, and we just talked about where they are. Say, man, it's a struggle. It is a struggle. Over the last year, hundreds of independent pharmacies across this country have been forced to close because they simply cannot make enough in reimbursements for the medicine that they are dispensing to make the money work. Just can't do it. Like, it's not there because of the way they are reimbursed, because of the system that is in place. And most people seem to believe that PBMs need to change. Like, it needs to be different than it is. This is not a good system. Scott Waller is president and CEO of the Mississippi Economic Council, and he is coming at this from a different angle. He, I don't think, is in favor of some of the legislation that we have seen proposed in the House and the Senate this year. And we're going to ask Scott why. We're going to try to understand all the sides of the issue. Then you can make up your mind. Let you do it on your own. All right. News headlines. You see, Columbia University has been in the news. Columbia University, New York City. You remember a couple of weeks ago when 47 dropped the hammer on Columbia and said, hey, you liberals at Columbia, you're not getting any more money from the feds. We're killing $400 million in federal funding because you support anti-Semitism. Well, Columbia is getting close to yielding to some of the demands of President Trump in negotiations to restore the $400 million in federal funding. According to people close to the discussion, the Trump administration has given Columbia until Friday, tomorrow, it's an extension of their deadline, to agree to 9 far-reaching demands. The government earlier this month canceled the grants and contracts over allegations of anti-Semitism. But they gave the university a review period. The demands include banning masks, empowering campus police, putting the school's Department of Middle East, South Asian, and African Studies under academic receivership, which basically means they can't run their own department. You got to take another department head and have them run that department. It's not controlled by the faculty within the school. Middle East, South Asian, and African Studies. Wonder what those professors are teaching at Columbia. Here's the thing, though. Agreement to these Trump demands doesn't guarantee that the federal funds will return. In a letter last week, the Trump administration said meeting its 9 requests was a precondition for formal negotiations. The letter said that there are other immediate and long-term structural reforms that are needed at Columbia in order for them to continue to receive federal funding going forward. The leadership at Columbia. Now, I'm glad we're hearing from the leadership at Columbia because we certainly care what they think. Leadership at Columbia is also concerned about the optics of the Trump administration dictating policy there, which is one of the most, Columbia, which is one of the most historically left-leaning elite institutions in the United States. I am 100% on board with academic freedom. But I'm not sure that my definition of academic freedom and some others' definition of academic freedom is exactly the same way. Like, I'm all for teaching history as it happened. We don't have to whitewash history. We can talk about the fact that slavery existed in the United States, and we can talk about the reasons why slavery existed in the United States. We can talk about why the Civil War happened, and we can recognize that part of the reason that the Civil War happened was because of states' rights. But we can also recognize that part of the reason the Civil War happened is because of the fight to abolish slavery in the United States. Like, just the facts, Fred. I don't know that I, generally speaking, need an opinion piece from a history professor. On a history professor, I need to learn the history. I'm sorry I'm picking on history. It was just the first thing that popped into my head.
Well, you're not wrong to do that because you're taught to critically think in that way. You're looking at other people's work that was vetted, and your job in many cases to publish is to tear that apart and come up with some other theory. And that's the way the system works in many ways, is to break down that which some other expert years ago came up with and did the research and prove how wrong that is today. And you have the reinvention of history every day because of that.
Yeah, it's almost like could we read about the events and learn what happened and why they happened?
And keep the opinions over there, right.
Yeah.
That was the big turnoff to me, starting and working, looking to get a master's in that field and teach was, I don't really want to rework somebody else's work. I want to go out and dig something out of the ground and write about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Got some reorganization plans at USAID. We'll tell you what those are. And there's a new panhandling law that is sitting on the desk of Governor Tate Reeves waiting for his signature. You know about the AI task force in Mississippi? We'll tell you about that and more when we come back. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Want to know what's happening in Mississippi politics?
Yes.
You're in the right place. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
May I offer an unsolicited, friendly, might save you some jail time piece of advice? Would that be appropriate, Lance?
Bring it on.
You are welcome to do with this as you wish. If you are mad, angry, like so full of vitriol that you've just got to do something to show Trump and Elon who is boss, that they are not your boss, that you don't agree with what they are doing, then may I suggest that you find an outlet to relieve that anger other than taking a car key and carving a swastika or some phrase into the door of a Tesla?
Thought they were bulletproof, the Cybertruck.
I have a news flash for you. Teslas have cameras. Yeah. And if you walk up beside a Tesla, you have a screwdriver or a key or whatever, and you're like, I'm going to get them. I'm going to put a swastika on the side of this old Tesla. it's going to record you doing it, and you're going to jail. Like the old man in California who stared at the person who confronted him about it and was like, I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about? I don't do that. What are you talking about? Hey, moron, it's on camera. What do you mean? That wasn't me. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. Look, this isn't you. Leave me alone. Why are you recording me? Because you're going to jail. That's why. Why is this what Democrats have become? And look, I understand that I am painting with a really, really, really big brush there. Not all Democrats are bad people. Not all people who don't agree with the right or the president or whatever are bad people. Not even close. I did a podcast yesterday with Grant Callen, and we talked about that. I mean, one of the things that is great about the state of Mississippi is our ability to get along with people that are different than us, that have a different skin color than we do, that have a different religious belief than we do, who don't sound the same as we do. How about who don't have the exact same political beliefs as we do? I think that's one of the great things about Mississippi. But the political divide right now is so stark. You know, when Republicans don't get their way, when they are frustrated, you know what they do? They get up and go to work the next morning. They want to protest. They don't buy your product. Right, Bud Light? Why is it that when Democrats don't get their way or they get mad, they have turned to destruction of property, of protesting that turns into violence and fires? Why is that the way that it goes right now? What are we doing? I'm mad at Elon Musk. Let me shoot a Tesla dealership with a rifle. I'm mad at Doge. Let's burn a Tesla. And do you realize that you had a man who was running to be vice president of the United States standing on stage and openly mocking the falling stock price of an American company with American workers, made in America, simply because he doesn't like Elon? And oh, by the way, the Minnesota Pensioners Fund is backed by Tesla stock. Ha, ha, ha! Want a good day? Watch how far Tesla stock's going down. Pay no attention to the fact that your retirement account is too. Sorry about that. Tim Walz. Well, you want to talk about avoiding a disaster. Holy cow. All right, a couple of you have said we stormed the Capitol. Fair. It happened. It happened. I think there was a lot at work there, but I can't prove all of that, so you're right. You got me. It happened. At the risk of angering some of you, I would like to work in a couple of sports headlines, if I may. The SEC had a record 14 teams in the NCAA men's basketball tournament. That is now 13. Texas, c'est la vie. Adios. They fell to Xavier last night in Dayton, Ohio. In the first four. Dropped a 6-point decision. Xavier 86, Texas 80. I mean, first year in the SEC, you'd think you could do the league a little prouder than that, Texas. You'd think. Trey Johnson, the fabulous freshman who is soon to be an NBA superstar, led the way for Texas with 23 points. Actually played pretty well in terms of shooting percentages. They just didn't play a lick of defense. If you shoot 49% from the field, 47% from three, and 75% from the free throw line, you're supposed to win the basketball game. Unless you give up 55%, 48% to the other team. And that's what they did. So Texas is done, and let the hot takes about the SEC being overrated in basketball begin, because you know they will. You know they will.
Hey, it was their first year. Come on. In the SEC, give them a break.
Your Texas coach. Will Wade. You remember that name?
Ooh, that's
former
a good
head
one.
basketball coach at LSU.
LSU?
So Will Wade was paying players, allegedly out of his own pocket, at LSU. Maybe it's not even allegedly.
Yeah, I mean,
and he's on an FBI wiretap, and you got recordings and all of that good stuff. And here's the deal. He got bounced out at LSU. Investigation took forever. It was part of the FBI investigation, the whole deal. And we still we still don't know everything that happened there. But he got sent out of town, and he resurfaced at McNeese State. And has taken McNeese State to back-to-back NCAA tournaments.
Oh,
Look,
the guy can coach a little bit, huh?
he is the slimiest, smarmiest, smuggest guy in college basketball. And you know what he does? Wins.
Hey, I got to say one thing, though. I mean, when you're paying out of your own pocket instead of McDonald's brown bags, that's pretty stand-up, though, instead of... I'm not condoning it or anything.
Well,
but
I would call it investing in yourself.
Yeah, I mean, but at the end of the day, that's pretty bold.
Yeah. So he's going to Raleigh, going to be the head coach at NC State. You know what NC State's going to do moving forward? They're going to win.
Yeah.
They're going to win with Will Wade as their head coach. And good for them. But in the most Will Wade move ever, it gets announced before his team, McNeese State, plays its NCAA tournament game.
Goodness.
I mean, that is so on brand. So on brand. Speaking of the NCAA men's basketball tournament, you know when that bad boy starts?
Today.
About 5 hours from now. Whoo, brother, it is coming. What a fun day. There are all kinds of studies about productivity. I was reading one earlier this week. It is projected that $20 billion is lost in productivity, or the equivalent of $20 billion is lost in productivity this week during the NCAA men's basketball tournament. 11:15, that's the first game up. Creighton and Louisville. Then you got High Point and Purdue and Montana and Wisconsin. It's almost like it doesn't even matter who the teams are. Like there's some games that if your team's in it, you're locked in. So just watch all of it. And we're just really on upset alert. In the first 2 days of the tournament, all we're looking for is upsets. C Spire text line. There's a spike in vasectomies on this day and this time of year. This weekend and Masters weekend, the two best weekends of the year for a vasectomy. Just make sure you got a bag of frozen peas in the freezer.
Yeah, they got like deals going on or something?
Some do. Some absolutely do, Lance. Like, hey, 10% off of vasectomy on Masters weekend. I mean,
you got to know your market, huh?
I mean, all you got to do, fella, is lay around for the whole weekend and you got an excuse and nobody can mess with you. Quick time out. This is Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi. Welcome to the show.
get that C-Spire text line popping this morning, 601-879-4395, 601-879-4395. We will get to some of your messages coming up, but first we want to do the important work of giving you the numbers from the Mississippi Lottery, MS Lottery. That's LOTTERY.com. A lot of contests going on. Had a big old drawing yesterday, or maybe it's today. I'll tell you in just a second. We start, as we always do, with Lotto America. Nobody won last night. That means the pot gets bigger today. $27 million and change. Estimated cash value of about $12.5 million. Wednesday's numbers, 4, 8, 26, 34, 36. The star ball was 6. The all-star bonus multiplier was 2. I got great news for you, Lance. Nobody won the Powerball last night, which means the pot grows to $444 million. And the cash value now over $200 million. $207,200,000. Last night's numbers, 8, 11, 21, 49, 59. The Powerball was 15, and the Power Play multiplier was dose.
Well, double play numbers from the Wednesday drawing, 7, 15, 36, 40, and 56 with a Powerball of 8. And same on Mega Millions, no jackpot winner yet. It's up to $324 million for the Friday drawing. Estimated cash value.
I'm sorry. We just got a message from somebody that says, I guess this is just turning into a lottery station now.
Oh, yeah, of course. Thank you. I love the sense of humor this morning on the text line is amazing,
I
guys.
love carryover listeners that want to stick with inside jokes. I love you so much. Please go ahead. Go ahead.
Well,
please.
Up to $150 million. And the numbers from the Tuesday drawing, 27, 28, 31, 32, 33, Mega Ball of 24, Megaplier multiplier of 3.
Mississippi match 5. We had a jackpot winner, baby. Player matched all 5 numbers to win that $730,000 jackpot, the winning ticket. Kroger, Horn Lake, $50,000. The numbers they had, 10, 16, 21, 25, 35.
It's a chunk of change there, $730,000. Ooh,
man, that's good.
That's nice to go. Going into March Madness with that in your account. Yeah, you got a little play money if you want to.
Oh, you're saying if you want to,
you get a little play money there.
If you want to bet on the ponies a little bit, so to speak.
That's right. I would. I mean,
ease on over to Pearl River Resort and see if you can double that money.
That's what I'd be doing. Take a little play money.
Please join the Mississippi Lottery at Saturday's St. Patty's Day Parade as they march with the Jackson State University Sonic Boom of the South. You ever hang out with the St. Patty's Day Parade?
I've been to the parade many times, but I have never had the honor of getting to walk with Jackson State in the Sonic Boom. That would be a memory of a lifetime.
I bet our friends at the Mississippi Lottery would let you join them.
I'm in,
if you were so inclined.
Yes, I have to reach out to Mr. Hewitt there. And
the next Pink Panther Diamond Tripler bonus drawing happens later today. Follow on social media to see the winning cities and sign up to be a lottery insider at mslottery.com to receive exclusive emails about all things promotion winners, new games, and more. The $5 Pink Panther Diamond Tripler scratch-off. Oh, so close.
You had it, too. You're in the last word.
Your shot at the top prize of $100,000, and that's not all. Don't forget, with every Pink Panther bonus promotion entry into the Second Chance portal, you're not only entering to win bonus prizes from $100 gift cards to $15,000 in cash, but also for that grand prize of $100,000 after the game ends. MSLottery.com to check it out. Give me some winners, man. Some winners.
We had a bunch of them in there, too. So the Cash 4 Lauderdale woman with $2,600 on a ticket from Harris Grocery Store in Lauderdale. Cash Pop winners. A Guntown man won $1,000 from Saltillo Discount Tobacco in Saltillo. A Raleigh woman won $3,500 using 2 tickets from the shortstop number 2 in Raleigh and also the McGee Red Apple Chevron in McGee. And match 5, Pelahatchie woman, $800. A Columbus woman, $800. And a Hattiesburg man won $1,000 on the ticket from Clark Oil Company, $50 in Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
Beautiful. Those are your winners. Just a couple of them, just a sampling of them from the Mississippi Lottery, mslottery.com. You weren't genuinely asking why that people might bump up and get more vasectomies this time of year, were you?
I mean, I don't know. Is it because of the Masters and
100%?
Really?
So the deal is, I don't see the obviously connection. A vasectomy. I mean, that's the snip, right?
Yeah.
And people have to completely leave you alone. Like if you have little people running around your house, they have to be kept out of the room, away. You are just left on your own to ice yourself and relax and not put any strain on the body, which is a perfect time when you have something like the Masters on television or the NCAA men's basketball tournament on television.
I was thinking way off from that. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Connect the dots.
Yeah. I was thinking like the wives were on him like, no, you're not going to the Masters without that first.
That's right. We'll be right back. We'll be back.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Find out what's happening across your state. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
All right, we're going to spend a minute on the C Spire text line. 601-879-4395. Give your business the edge with gigabit fiber internet from C Spire Business. Check them out online. cspire.com/business. C Spire, inspired by you. Sometimes you go in a direction you don't really intend to go down. David Blount's going to join us shortly. Lars Larson in the 8 o'clock hour. Scott Waller in the 8 o'clock hour as well. One of the funniest days ever on Sports Talk Mississippi was a day in which we were discussing vasectomies. Maybe you can go back and you can find it somewhere. That came up today as it that topic came up today, as today is the beginning of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. And there are 2 weekends on the calendar in which vasectomies seem to be more popular than others. They are this weekend and the Masters weekend. Why, you might ask, just in case you need us to connect the dots? Well, husband/dad needs to be left alone for a couple of days for a good, full, peaceful recovery. And the television content is exceptional over the next couple of days or over the first couple of days of Masters weekend. You have not disappointed at all. At all.
No, I've got tears rolling down my eyes.
Let's see here. Darren Jackson says, a vasectomy is a great way to enjoy the Masters. In fact, I'm thinking of having my 5th one just to enjoy it this year.
You're going to run up a 6-pack of those and for next year.
He's like, yeah, Darren says, yeah, what a great weekend coming up. Lay on the couch, play a little mobile sports betting for the basketball games. Oh, wait, never mind. Yeah. We can't do that in Mississippi. The winner, though,
you have to take your bag of peas with you
in Ridgeland. Said I had a vasectomy done a couple of years ago. It wasn't that bad. Only weird part was when the doc had his nephew in for the consult and preliminary checkup. Kid wasn't even in med school yet. Yeah, but I did get a great basket of snacks for my wife. This is a wife that has got it figured out. She has a big sign in the back of the basket that says, "Snippity doo dah, snippity yay, happy vasectomy day."
Yeah, with the scalpel.
And then she has a basket that includes beef jerky, a package of goldfish, Little Debbie Donuts, Cap'n Crunch Mega Berries, a box of Milk Duds with a note on it that says, "Now you're shooting," next to the Duds. A $0 bar.
Oh, man.
This is a wife that gets it. Well done, Rhett and Ridgeland's wife.
And then,
that
on
is
top of that,
exceptional.
the nephew being
So the thing that pushed Haydad over the corner, over the edge when we were having this discussion, and I mean, he went from laughing to a belly laugh to like inability to breathe when I told him that my urologist his name was Dr. Harden. He lost it, man. I'm talking about full on. He goes, your doctor's name is Dr. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. CC in Senatobia.
Another good one, yeah.
But after a procedure like that, do you really want to watch bouncing balls on TV? Kirk in Carroll County says, I wore a tuxedo to my vasectomy. If I'm going to be impotent, I want to look important.
It reminds me of the Joe versus the volcano, one of the opening scenes, when he's walking in and he works in this big, huge factory. And I believe they make like fake testicles, and it's just his day is just horrible all the time. And that's what a vasectomy sounds like to me. I'm sorry, but
that's
sounds
not
miserable.
what it is.
Yeah, it sounds miserable.
It is actually quite the
opposite. Yeah,
quite the fast, easy, relatively painless procedure. I think from beginning to end, the actual procedure took 8 minutes. Yep. Shall we move along?
Well, I'm going wherever you want to go, my fearless leader.
Some of these are funny. I don't need to read them. Perhaps we've gone too far already.
Oh, no, it's Thursday. Yeah, this is your Friday, so,
Yeah, well, it is. Yeah. It is. That's right.
Got to have a little fun.
That's right. Me. 601-879-4395. With all that said, we hope you enjoyed the men's basketball tournament today. Hey, there are a couple of other headlines I wanted to get to when we were doing that, some news headlines. Let's go to the state level. The Safe Solicitation Act, authored by Representative Shanda Yates, an independent from Jackson, passed in the originating chamber, the House, in February, overwhelmingly, 81-30. It was overwhelmingly approved in the Senate as well, 39-12, more than a month later. Joey Fillingane, senator from Sumrall, Republican, and chairman of Senate Judd B., and one of the bill's champions, said giving law enforcement teeth when it comes to addressing unsafe or aggressive solicitation will be beneficial for everyone involved. The potential law includes the conditions under which panhandling, this is the Panhandling Act that people are talking about, can be carried out, establishing limitations including the following. By the way, municipalities can issue permits for panhandling with some of these limitations. Municipalities may charge up to $25 for a permit to beg or ask for help, solicit help, but they may also issue those permits at no charge. All solicitors can only enter or remain in a roadway or street while a traffic signal prohibits vehicular movement. That means stoplight. All solicitors must stay within 100 feet of the intersection approved under their specific permit. Meaning if you are in a line that is 30 cars deep at a red light while you're waiting for the light to change, that panhandler can't go 30 cars deep. He can go like 6 cars deep. Solicitation can only occur during daylight hours for obvious safety reasons. No solicitor may impede traffic at any time, and no solicitor may persist after either solicitation is denied or act in a demanding or harassing manner. They may ask if they have a permit. They may not harass you if you say no. They must move on. C-Spire text line, they want to address panhandling, but not the ballot initiative. PAR. Okay. Legislation to create an artificial intelligence regulation task force to examine ethical standards, privacy issues, and possible AI use within state government is sitting on Governor Tate Reeves' desk. The measure is Senate Bill 2426. It's got bipartisan support. In the 9-page bill, the 7-member task force will report findings to the legislature on an annual basis until 2027. The group will focus on how AI can improve several areas in the state, including workforce development, elementary and secondary education, healthcare, private business, data processing, private and public colleges, and universities. Hot topic in the legislature, this bill. There were a number of bills that were introduced during the session related to AI. Most of them didn't make it out of committee, including Senate Bill 2059, which would have created a task force. We're going to develop a committee aimed at developing policy recommendations for AI usage in kindergarten through 12th grade classrooms. This is all fantastic, as long as it's not a tool instead of a replacement, right? I mean, I don't care whether you're talking ChatGPT or Grok or whatever. I was having a conversation with a buddy the other day. He is a coder. He's an attorney. He does a lot of really, really cool things. He said, I use ChatGPT all the time. He said, there's simply no reason to write a line of code when I can say to my phone or my computer, hey, write a line of code that does this. And in seconds, it's done. Now, that's a tool. Still going to have the brain behind it to tell it what to do, though. All right, Senator David Blount joins us coming up next. This is Mornings with Richard Cross.
From the White House to your hometown, this is where you find out what's happening. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We both give a little, ain't no road too long when we meet in the middle.
Thanks for being with us on this Thursday morning. This hour of the show is brought to you by MWG Employer Services. You can find them online at MWGEmployerServices.com. That is the website. We know that running a business is tough. If you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you're not alone. That's where MWG Employer Services comes in. They can provide a full range of employer services, plus a custom plan that fits you. Give them a call today, 601-206-7966, or online, MWGEmployerServices.com. A couple things I want to let you know coming up. Today, Gerard with Middays with Gerard Gibbert will be in Tupelo. 7 Days for the Troops is an incredible Mississippi group driven by a single mission to serve those who have bravely served our country. Middays, Gerard Gibbert will be there at their Southern Salute to the Troops at the Antler in Tupelo to help show appreciation for those who have served in our nation. And finally, this afternoon on In a Mississippi Minute with Steve Azar, you're going to hear an interview with Mark Pattison. Mark played college football. He played in the NFL. And after his playing years were over, he's been an incredibly successful businessman. I was fortunate to, in Steve Azar's Delta Soul golf event a couple of years ago, play with Mark. He has now climbed the 7 highest mountains in the world, including most recently Mount Everest. He's going to be on with Steve Azar this afternoon. It's presented by Superior Catfish. Yeah, you really will enjoy that conversation. Mark Pattison's story is incredible. Played with the Raiders in the NFL. And he looks like he can still play football today. All right, David Blount joins us. Senator David Blount. He represents District 29. He is chair of the Senate Gaming Committee. He is co-chair of the Senate Education Committee as well. Good morning, Mr. Senator.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
I've got you loud and clear. Appreciate some of your time this morning. You and I have communicated a little bit, and I appreciate you being willing to visit with us this morning. There's been so much conversation about tax reform in this legislative session, but much of the conversation has centered around a House bill or a Senate bill, and ultimately the elimination of the state income tax. 2 days ago, I was in the gallery in the Senate. It's the first time I'd been there. And got to watch some of the floor debate, part of which was you speaking out against the passage of the amended Senate bill that would ultimately lead, assuming triggers are in place, to the elimination of state income tax. Give me a high-level reasoning for why you are against the elimination of the state income tax, or at least the bill as it stands.
I believe a lot of Mississippians in both parties believe that eliminating the income tax, especially eliminating it right now, is a bad idea. There are three things that have been going on in Mississippi in the last few years. Number one, we all know that our state was propped up by an unprecedented amount of federal spending. During COVID, during the prior presidential administration, Mississippi got an unprecedented amount of money, and that money's going away. And we're going to have to live within our means like we always did before that. I've served under three governors. Twice, Governor Barber was forced to make cuts in the middle of the year because the money wasn't coming in. Twice, Governor Blount was forced to make cuts in the middle of the year because the money wasn't coming in. And I think our economy is going to get back to historically where it's always been. I think we're making progress, but this federal money that we got during COVID and the American Rescue Plan and all the rest of it is going away. It's one-time money. Secondly, there is unprecedented, I think anybody would agree with me on this, uncertainty about what the federal government is going to do. Whether the departments are going to exist, whether things are going to change. 40% of our budget comes from Washington. We get more than $12 billion a year. They're talking about making cuts to Medicaid. They're talking about block granting Medicaid up there. I don't know what they're going to do. I'm not in Washington. But we get $6 billion a year for the Medicaid program. If the match for Medicaid reduced by 1 percentage point, that's $80 million that the state will have to come up with.
Right.
We get $800 million a year for the Department of Education. What's going to happen to the Department of Education? I don't know. So you have uncertainty about what's going to happen with Congress and the government of Washington. And thirdly, I think we all know, we saw just the Federal Reserve this week said that we are entering an increased period of uncertainty with regard to our economy, the economy of the country. We don't know what's going to happen with tariffs. The Federal Reserve said just this week that they anticipate unemployment to rise, they anticipate inflation to go up. It's just an uncertain economic time. And this is not the time to make major radical changes to your tax structure when you're talking about 1/3 of the overall general fund budget. It's not the right time, and I think it's something that we should be cautious about.
All right, so let's walk through those. I don't disagree with you on the first point that you made about the fact that we don't know exactly what federal money coming to Mississippi is going to look like in a post-COVID era that's now, I mean, the spigot has been wide open. It was wide open during the time in which President Biden was in office. It was like they couldn't hand out money fast enough, and that does appear to be changing. So, yes, I would agree with you that there is uncertainty on that point. On the point of the changes that are happening in the government, even if departments go away, if the Department of Education goes away, if there are changes to Medicaid, that doesn't mean the money's going to stop, though. Doesn't it just mean that the money's going to be distributed in a different way?
I don't know. I don't think you know. I don't think our congressmen know. I think if you ask anybody in Washington right now, they'll tell you this is very much in flux, and the details have not been worked out. And is Medicaid going to be cut? Is Medicaid going to be sitting in a block grant to the state? I don't know the answer to that. I don't think anybody knows the answer to that. And these are major programs involving 40% of our budget. So look, I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know if I'm going to think it's a good idea or not. Maybe you think it's going to be. But the fact is, none of us know right now when we're supposed to have a budget in 2 weeks.
But do you, at the same time, live in fear because of the unknown forever?
No, but I don't want to make changes to our tax structure that could eliminate 1/3 of our revenue when I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think that's cautious. I don't think that's the right thing we could do. Because if you eliminate the income tax, to restore an income tax is a 3/5 vote of the legislature. And things may happen in next month, things may happen in 6 months, things may happen in a year. And if you are on a track by law that eliminate 1/3 of your budget, you'll never get it back. And you may end up with a lot of expenses that you didn't know about when you passed that bill.
So you actually said something that struck me as really interesting in the debate when you were taking questions the other day. There was a senator that asked you about your position on Medicaid, in which a year ago you were for expansion of Medicaid, and there were Republican senators that were for that as well. But we knew at the time that there was a possibility that was going to end up costing the state of Mississippi a lot of money down the line because of the uncertainty of the future of how the federal government was going to reimburse Medicaid to the states. You were for that at the time. You did say that you thought this year was not the time to do it because of the uncertainty. Why the change? There was uncertainty a year ago. There certainly is uncertainty now. Why were you for it then, not for it now?
Well, I'll say what happened a year ago before the presidential election. We didn't know who was going to be president. We had a Medicaid program that has been largely the same for 60 years, longer than I've been alive. We have an expansion program that had been the law for more than 10 years and had been adopted by 40 states, many of those states Republican states. What's being discussed right now after the election, when we know that we have a different president, is the program may be changed more than it's ever been changed in 60 years. So that's just traditional Medicaid, which could increase the cost to the state. With regard to expansion, what's being discussed is reducing or even eliminating the match money for that expansion population. That was not being discussed even 2 months ago, but it is being discussed now. And so for that reason, and I was asked that question by Senator Fillingate, for that reason, I do think it's wise to pause right now, because if the Congress passes a bill that says we're not going to give you a 9-to-1 match that has been the law of the land for more than a decade, and we're not going to do that anymore, that has to influence our decisions. Absolutely it does. But we had a law under multiple presidents for more than a decade from both parties that said we'll give you a 9-to-1 match. That was the situation last year, and I thought it was a good deal. We should take it. Right now, just in the last month or so, they're talking about ending that match, and that has to change our calculation. And that's my point.
But if we had expanded
right now about how this is all going to work,
if we had gone the route of expansion a year ago, wouldn't we be in the exact same spot where we're sitting here with a ton of uncertainty about, okay, if they change it, we're on the hook for what we agreed to a year ago?
That's right. And if we had, then the Speaker of the House, who is a strong proponent of expansion, and the Lieutenant Governor who supported expansion, and the overwhelming majority of Republican legislators who voted for expansion would be talking to our congressmen and senators saying, you get us a deal and now you're going to change it. I think that just like there are lots of red states that would be in that situation if that changed right now.
Senator Blount, we're up against a break. You got time to hang with me for a few more minutes?
Happy to.
Senator David Blount joining us this morning, represents District 29. That is primarily Hinds County. We've got a quick time out. We're back with you. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Back with you, Mornings with Richard Cross. Thanks for being with us on this Thursday. Weekend just around the corner. NCAA men's basketball tournament starts today. Got a good sports weekend coming up as college baseball rolls on as well. Legislature in session for another couple of weeks. A significant vote in the Senate 2 days ago that keeps the possibility of major tax reform alive in both chambers, and that negotiation is going on. We're visiting with Senator David Blount. He represents District 29. He voted against the Senate amendment yesterday. I was thinking a bit during the break, and I'm curious. You said this is not the right time to vote for basically the elimination of revenue. A third of the revenue in the state of Mississippi is what this eventually what this bill would do. Is there a time where you would be for the elimination of the state income tax?
No. I think there is a disagreement if we're going to have a tax cut, whether we should have an income tax cut or a grocery tax cut. If both those, hypothetically, if both those amounts were the same, which one is preferable? Different people can have different ideas about that. I personally prefer a grocery tax cut.
But there is a grocery tax cut in this bill also.
There is, which just increases the hit on the general fund. I'm not in favor of reducing the income tax. Mississippi has one of the lowest income taxes in the nation of the more than 40 states that have an income tax. And I think we need a balanced source of revenue in the state. Some of that comes from income, some of that comes from sales tax, some of it comes from other taxes. So I think eliminating income tax is a bad idea.
All right. So I just want to be clear on this. So a second ago you said you were against the elimination of the income tax in this bill because of the timing of it and the uncertainty going forward, but now you say you're actually just against the elimination of income tax, period.
I'm against the elimination of the income tax. But what I hear from many of the Republican members that I serve with, who I speak with, say, who would disagree with me on that, who would be in favor of eliminating the income tax, are concerned about the timing of this. They may disagree with me on which tax cut is preferable. But I think anybody would recognize that we are still on the tail end of unprecedented federal spending, that we've got unprecedented uncertainty in Washington, and treacherous economic times ahead. And I think for that reason, some of those people are going to be more cautious.
That's fine. And I guess the point I'm making, though, is when you say, okay, these are the reasons that I'm against it, and it's because of uncertainty going forward with revenue that's coming to the state and expenses that we may have coming forward. It's not, though, about the timing. It's about the fact that you disagree with eliminating the income tax, period.
I think there are different reasons to vote no on the bill.
But those reasons change whether it's this year or last year or next year.
Well, I'd still like to see what anybody's going to do with replacing a third of the revenue. I'd love to hear you ask people on your show every morning, what are you going to cut? What are you going to cut to make up? And I have yet to hear.
Well, now, hold on. That actually is a reasonable question, and that's one that I've asked because everybody has talked about, okay, we're going to eliminate the income tax, and we have not had a significant conversation about what is going to be cut that would help with.
They won't answer the question.
So what would you cut? What would you cut?
They won't say what they're going to cut.
What would you suggest we cut?
I voted no. Listen, what I would do. Listen, you could send more money to highways. You could spend more money to every single city and county in this state for water, roads, and bridges, and have more money for the state budget if you did nothing. I mean, that's what we should do. We have every city and county in the state. I have a rural volunteer fire department in South Highlands County that needs a new fire station. And everybody up at that capital has situations like that. And they come to this capital asking for money because 72 of the 82 counties in the state are losing people. And they come to Jackson to ask for help. And that's what we should do with that money instead of eliminating the income tax, which for most people would save them a couple $100 a year.
Senator Blount, let me ask you this. You work in your full-time job, you work in the commercial real estate space. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
So why is state government different than private business? And I'm thinking about the commercial real estate space. So if you're looking at a deal as an investor or as a developer, you analyze the deal, you figure out what the risk is, and then you decide whether or not you're willing to take the risk. But generally speaking, if you're going to do a development or you're starting a project, you got to take a risk to be able to be successful in business. Why is state government so different than private business?
Because state government performs functions that no other business or competitor can do. No other entity is going to go out and fix water systems or sewer systems. No other body's going to get in that business. It's funded by taxes. State government is going to be here in 200 years. And as long as the United States is a country, we're going to have state government. Businesses may change. Businesses may be sold. Businesses may fail. Government is different. And government does functions that the private sector cannot do. Water, sewer, roads, bridges, fire protection. That's what we ought to be doing instead of eliminating income tax.
But if you're going to be successful in anything, you have to take calculated risks along the way, don't you? And we want to see, I think you and I can certainly agree, we want to see the state of Mississippi be successful. We want to see the economy continue to grow. We want to see business continue to come to the state. Don't you have to take some calculated risks to allow those things to continue to happen?
Again, I go back to the question of timing. To me, eliminating a third of your budget.
But you said it's not about timing.
This is more risk than we should take on. This is reckless. It is reckless to eliminate a third of your budget, given the uncertainty that we've discussed, and just hope that you're going to grow and meet the needs that you have to meet as a state. The cities and counties that we all represent come here needing help for essential public infrastructure projects. And when the state budget is reduced by this amount, they're not going to get any help.
I am fascinated. I was talking to my wife last night about this. One of the things that I'm committed to doing with this show is hearing viewpoints that are different than mine and viewpoints that are different than many of the listeners and the texters on this show. I mean, this is largely a conservative audience. But I am genuinely curious how people can educated people can look at the exact same issue. And I can say, okay, it's pretty clear this makes sense. And somebody coming from a different viewpoint can look at the exact same issue and be on the complete opposite side of that. And I just feel like there are a lot of educated people that are in the legislature, some even in your party. I know there was some frustration that there were some Democrats that came over, and ultimately this amended bill passed in the Senate because of the 4 Democrat votes that came along with it. How is it that people, even in your party, are looking at the exact same issue and they are on a 180-degree opposite viewpoint than yours?
Well, there were more Republicans who didn't vote for the bill than Democrats who did. You had 4 Republicans who voted no and 3 who did not vote for it. So there are concerns among the Republican side. Look, I know this is mostly a conservative audience. I've been on the show, but I'm happy to come on this show because I believe there are a lot of people who are conservative, who are represented by Republicans in the legislature that are a little nervous about this. And I talk to my Republican colleagues. We have a good relationship and we disagree on things. But I think if you talk to them privately, if they talk to their constituents back home, they know what we're talking about here with regard to federal spending and the issues we discussed. I believe that there are a lot of conservative Republicans out there who want to limit the income tax, but I think there are a lot that are nervous about it, who understand the risk involved with eliminating a third of your budget. And I think that the more cautious approach is what we should do in the next 2 weeks.
Quickly before we run out of time, and if you've got time, I might hold you over for the last segment. I really want to get to mobile sports betting, a couple of questions on that with you as well before we run out.
Well, I'm happy to do that. I would also like to raise the PERS question, which I know is part of this debate.
To do what now?
PERS, the retirement system.
And that's where I wanted to go before the break. So PERS is another component of this amended bill. A lot of conversation. Senator Sparks put together largely the Tier 5 proposal that's in that. There was a great deal of debate. We know that anytime the phrase PERS, the acronym PERS comes up, people immediately have the hair on the back of their neck stand up. And people who are in the PERS system are concerned about its stability. We also recognize that there is a significant liability that's out there for PERS in the neighborhood of $26 billion. How big of a concern is the PERS piece of this for why you voted against it?
It's huge. I want to say first to everybody, and I agree with Senator Sparks on this, and I think I can speak for everybody in the legislature when I say this. We all know that we have a contractual legal obligation to our retirees and people who are in the system today, and nobody is talking about breaking that obligation. So no one should change their plans because they're scared about that. Secondly, we all know that this is going to cost. We all agree that we all know we need a fifth tier. I disagree with Senator Sparks on what that tier ought to look like, but we need a new tier. But that is for people who have not been hard yet.
Hold that thought. Hold that thought. We'll pick it up on the other side of the break. We're visiting with Senator David Blount, represents District 29 in the Mississippi Senate. We will take a quick time out. We'll wrap up the hour with Senator Blount when we come back with you. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi.
Good morning, everybody. Time to wake up.
Time to shine! Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
And the room filled up with love. They came bounding through the back door in the middle of the song. They got me for possession.
Back with you one last time in this 7 o'clock hour. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi. Senator David Blount is my guest. We were talking about the PERS piece of the Senate amendment, which passed 32-16 on Tuesday of this week. And I want to pick that up. I think, Senator Blount, the last thing you said before the break was that there's no question the state is liable for and is committed to funding PERS as it exists for every member of the PERS community right now. But there do have to be some changes going forward. I think you said the disagreement that you have with Senator Sparks is what that Tier 5 system should look like as we move forward. Is that a fair summation?
That's right. And we can get into that. But I would say whatever happens with Tier 5, whatever that program looks like, well, the benefits of that won't be seen for decades. This is the big picture, and this is why linking these two issues is so important. Everyone knows that to fix PERS, it's not just going to take a fifth tier, it's going to take more money, significantly more money over a period of time. Where's that money going to come from? It's going to come from the state budget. There's just this incredible disconnect to me where the session is about we're in the best financial shape we've ever been in. We're going to cut the state budget by 1/3. We're going to eliminate more than $2 billion of income tax every year. And we have a problem at PERS and it's going to require significant money to fix it. What we ought to do before we cut taxes and eliminate 1/3 of the state general fund budget is fix PERS. It's funded at 56%. It has a $26 billion unfunded liability. And what do these folks want to do? They want to pass a more than $2 billion tax cut. It doesn't make any sense. We have this debt. We have this obligation. We know we're going to pay it. We should make sure the system is in a stronger financial position than it is before we cut taxes. And the only way to do that is with money from the state budget. That's what we should do.
So the only pushback that I would give on that is everybody talks about this $26 billion liability that's out there. The problem that I have with that characterization is it's not a $26 billion liability that's all due at once. We don't have to come up with that money tomorrow. It can happen incrementally over time. So why can't you do more than one thing at once? Why is it we have to divert all of the excess revenue to PERS and fixing that before we do anything that provides relief for Mississippians through tax breaks? Why not have that as a budget item, understand that it's something that has to be paid, has to be taken care of over time, and do both at the same time?
Because like any other debt you owe, like any debt you might owe in your personal household, the longer you wait to address it, the longer you spread out the money that is required to address it, the more it's going to cost. And we should attack it now because it's a debt. We should not cut taxes. We should move as quickly as possible to get the PERS system funded back up above 80%. And we could do that much faster and in the long run much cheaper to the state if we don't cut taxes.
Got to ask you about this before we finish up. We've had a bunch of texts asking about mobile sports betting and why it is that that's not going to the Senate floor for a vote. We know that the House is for it. The Senate has been less so. You're the chair of the gaming committee. Why are you against mobile sports betting?
Well, what we've always done is ask the people who are in this business, who employ either directly or indirectly between 20 and 30,000 Mississippians, and have been in the gambling business in Mississippi for more than 30 years, what their position on it is and how it would affect jobs in Mississippi. My interest in gaming is jobs and people who go to work and support their families in this business. There are 14 ownership groups in the casino business in Mississippi. 7 of them are for it, 7 of them are against it. 7 of them think it'll be good for their business, 7 think it'll be bad for their business. And so my interest is economic development, tourism, particularly on the Gulf Coast, which is a destination economy, restoring the tuna market. My interest is in what it will do to jobs in working Mississippi, and we're getting conflicting signals from the people who are in this business.
But what about what the people of Mississippi want? Who, and this is anecdotal. I mean, I don't know that we've got necessarily a firm. This is what 61% of the people want. This is what 39% of the people want. But anecdotally, people want the opportunity to place a bet. There are a lot of people that are doing it illegally. Why not legalize it and collect the tax revenue on that?
Well, the Senate passed a strong bill drafted with the support of the Gaming Commission. I think you had Mr. McDaniel on your show to give them the tools that they are asking for to crack down on illegal internet betting.
But illegal betting has been going on for 150 years, and it hasn't stopped.
Yeah, but here's the difference. You could go down to the corner book and you could bet on the Ole Miss Alabama game or who's going to cover the spread. What I hear is increasing concerns from parents and other people about having a bookie in your phone, in your pocket, and not just, and this is an important difference, not just to bet on who's going to win the game or who's going to cover the spread, but on an infinite number of multiple bets and multiple propositions and parlays and combinations. They don't make money on who you bet on to win the game. They make money on lots of bets that happen in the game in an infinite number of combinations. And because of that, it is more addictive and more risky.
Senator Blount, we're out of time. I appreciate your time this morning, and let's talk again soon.
Happy to be on the show.
Start your day right.
Good morning, America. How are you?
Honestly, I have no idea.
Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Pork. Not the kind that comes from Washington and bloated spending bills. We're spending more time in the kitchen and more time around the table. Pork makes it possible with thousands of delicious dishes from across the world. 100% real pork, brought to you by America's Pig Farmers. Discover new flavors at pork.org/real pork. Pork kind of makes the world go round. This is Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi, streaming everywhere, podcast available to you. Happy to welcome my next guest this morning, Lars Larson from the Lars Larson Show. Lars has a saying on his show. If you listen, you have heard him more times than you can count say, naysayers go to the front of the line. Well, Lars, we had a naysayer directly in front of you this morning, Senator David Blount.
I heard.
Visiting with us, and interesting conversation. Certainly a different perspective on state government and the world, but we try to balance those things out. Good morning to you, my friend.
Good morning to you, Richard, and thanks for the invitation. By the way, I have to work hard to get liberals and Democrats to come on the show, and it's sad because, as I said, as you said, for more than 25 years, we've always said naysayers go first. If I could have Democrats on every day of the week, I'd have members of Congress who are Democrats. I'd welcome Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, the whole bunch, AOC, even lunatics like Ilhan Omar. And I would do it at the state level as well, because state lawmakers, well, you were just talking to a state lawmaker about one of my favorite subjects, and that's PERS, Public Employee Retirement System. And virtually not every state in America, but almost all of them are upside down. California is upside down about $250 billion. It makes Mississippi's problems pale by comparison, but they got 40 million people, so you'd expect it to be bigger.
Sure.
And in some ways, it shows that they're not willing, they being lawmakers, both Democrats and Republicans, won't take their bills seriously. If you owe the money, I know what has happened over the decades is that state lawmakers will have the unions come in and say, our members want a raise. And they say, we don't have the money for a raise. So I'll tell you what, will boost your retirement. And they know that bill doesn't get paid for a few decades. So the state lawmaker who's doing that deal is saying, here's something I can give to the workers, and I don't have to pay for it out of this year's budget. Well, anytime you do that, you're setting yourself up for trouble. And Mississippi has, so has the state of Washington, so has the state of Oregon. And like I said, there are only a few states in America that actually have a solid PERS system where they pay as they go, like American families have to pay as they go.
Yeah. And, you know, when you mention retirement accounts, people's dander immediately goes up because they feel like they have done the work, they have invested the money, and they are owed that. And one of the things that I was in the gallery at the Senate in Mississippi a couple of days ago, and one of the things that they made abundantly clear in talking about PERS is if you are owed the money, you will be paid the money. But we have to make an adjustment for new hires going forward because we've got to stop the bleeding before we can fix the hemorrhaging.
And that's true. And in fact, just so people understand how serious that promise is, if you got guaranteed in the contract with the workers, you will be paid. Consider Detroit. The city of Detroit famously went bankrupt. And after they went bankrupt and they couldn't pay for ordinary services for citizens, they said, well, we're not going to pay the PERS debt. And the unions went to court, and the judge said, even if you don't have money for police, fire, medical, streets, water, sewer, even if you don't have the money to provide services to citizens, you will pay those pensions. Now, let me tell you where I might disagree with you just a bit.
Okay.
I do agree with you that you should have a tier 1, tier 2, et cetera. If you say, okay, everybody hired from July 1 of this year is on an entirely different system. But here's the problem. Virtually the entire United States in the private sector has gone away from what they call defined benefit programs.
Right.
Defined benefit means if you work as a cop for 30 years and you made so much money at retirement, you will get a percentage of your working pay times 30 equals your retirement pay. And we found, I don't know if it's true in Mississippi, but we found that there were a lot of public employees who literally made more money in retirement than they made when they were actually working, teachers, cops, and the rest. And you say, well, that's the deal they cut. It's because it wasn't transparent to the public. You know, all of us consider bills. I'm working on fixing up a little farmhouse that we bought that hasn't been occupied in about 14 years, and it's in bad shape. We had to do a roof and everything else, and we're doing a lot of the work ourselves. But if a contractor comes to me and says, hey, you want to put a new roof on it, say, what's your price? And show me you've done it before. That's how all of us operate. When you tell the public and the unions, we're going to pay this money, but it's not going to be paid for several decades, so we're not even going to worry about paying for it now, then you're not telling your customers, by the way, one of these days to pay PERS, we're going to have to cut teachers from your kids' school. We're going to have to cut sheriff's deputies and cops. And that's literally what's happening. That's the consequence. Now, most people would say, you know, if you're considering a big dollar decision like buying a new truck, I want to go buy a new pickup truck. Okay, you tell your wife, what's it going to cost? And you tell her, well, it's going to cost this much. And she says, we don't have that much in our budget. So what is it you want to cut out of the budget today to buy the new truck today? Instead of just saying, well, I'll go ahead and make the purchase and I'll worry about paying for it later. That's what the unions have talked us into. And the reason most of America has gone away from defined benefit programs to defined contribution, meaning my employer gives me a certain amount. I put money in my 401k. My employer matches it a certain amount. I put it into whatever investments I want to invest in. And whatever I get at the end of my career, that's what I get. But it's actual money that's put aside now. PERS in any state where it's present is simply a promise. Later on, we're going to pay you a promised benefit, whether we have the money or not. Now, I think that's cheating the citizens. Unless you want to go to them today and say, if you want to give the workers this defined benefit 30 or 40 years from now, literally, are you willing to give up some teachers and cops and paved roads and filling potholes and all that stuff? And most citizens would say, oh, I'm not doing that. Give them a defined contribution and let them take their chances like the rest of them.
Feels like we just need a money tree in the backyard. That would solve everything.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
That or just responsible budgeting. I mean, I'll tell you one, Richard, where I'll bet this crosses up with Mississippi, but one of the possible tax reforms at the federal level. Do you know what happens if a little town like Pontotoc, which is where my dog, my studio dog, Winston Churchill, is from? He's a Bernese and he came from Pontotoc.
How about that?
Say Pontotoc wants to build something. And maybe it's a good thing like a water treatment plant or sewage treatment plant. Maybe it's something they don't even need, like a fancy aquatic center or something. So how do they do it? Do they have the money now? No. They go out and they borrow it. They bond it. Now, for you and me, borrowing money is either a mortgage or a car loan or a Visa card. For cities, it's bonding. Guess what? The federal government says all the interest earned or paid to the bondholders is largely free of federal taxes, which makes those bonds very, very attractive.
Sure.
It also means that we're effectively subsidizing every city, every county, every state that wants to borrow massive amounts of money. Now, maybe Mississippi has kept its balance sheet clean. Maybe they haven't. But there are a lot of cities and counties in my neck of the woods who borrowed massive amounts of money because the money was cheap. Well, guess what? Look around, Richard. Money ain't cheap anymore.
It's not like it was. It is interesting. I actually had this conversation with a legislator just a couple of days ago. The state of Mississippi has not borrowed money for either of the last 2 years, and they have no plans to borrow money this year. I think the outstanding liability right now is a little over $3 billion. So the state of Mississippi is in pretty good shape economically right now. They've operated a surplus for the last 2 years. That's the big debate that we're having here is they're talking about tax reform and trying to take a gradual move toward eliminating the state income tax. Here's the fascinating thing, Lars. Mississippi has a supermajority, and so even though there are some Democrats that are against eliminating the income tax at all, the bigger debate here has been between House Republicans and Senate Republicans getting on the same page in how they go about eliminating the state income tax and whether or not ultimately they do it.
Well, I don't know the details. I have talked to your governor, and I think your governor is an excellent governor. And I think the idea of eliminating taxes is a great idea. And you're right, the devil is usually in the details. Exactly how do you propose to do this? But any state that can run its balance sheet so that they reduce taxes, leave people to keep more of the money they actually earn. I saw Chuck Schumer the other day disparaging the idea that Americans say, hey, I earned this money. I want to keep it. Don't reach in my pocket, U.S. government. Well, I think they say the same thing in state governments. Don't reach in my pocket and take my money. And Chuck Schumer disparages that idea. Of course, it's easy for Chuck. He's a multi-millionaire. And I think he became that because of insider trading and other sleazy deals in Congress. And I wouldn't say that Republicans haven't done the same thing. Republicans have done the same thing. But to disparage earning money, what is it exactly you produce as a member of the House of Representatives or a senator for several decades? You produce new rules for everybody else.
Quick time out. We've got more with Lars Larson coming. Did you know that being appointed as a federal judge was the same thing as being elected president?
From the Venom. On into you there. Okay, up and at 'em.
Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Well, my daddy never rode in the old van.
Lars Larson is my guest. You've got it locked in on Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi, streaming at supertalk.tv and supertalk.fm. And, of course, on the app, you can listen as a podcast later on the go. Thank you to those of you who sent a message that said we were having audio issues. It's squirrels. Squirrels were doing it somewhere along that. It's the best explanation I can give you. Hopefully we've got that corrected. Continue with Lars Larson. I said before the break, who knew that being appointed as a district federal judge was actually the same thing as winning the election of President of the United States? What are we doing?
Absolutely crazy. I mean, here's the thing. We have district courts for a reason, but their influence of those judges should be within that district. And frankly, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't claim that I know the law, but I have some familiarity with it. I would think that it's somewhat John Roberts' job as the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court to slap down some of these federal judges. And what I mean by that is they were given a lane. Your lane is you are a federal district judge in this district. You make decisions for that district. You don't make decisions for the entire country. Let's start there. And if you want something that sets the law for the entire United States, that has to be a case decided by the 9 justices of the U.S. Supreme Court. And if it's not decided by them, it does not set nationwide precedent. And yet you've got judges who seem to think that when the President of the United States says, I'm going to ship a bunch of enemy aliens out of the country under a piece of law that's been on the books for 200 years, and some pipsqueak federal judge who's appointed for life, he effectively can't be fired. I know he can be impeached, but that's very hard. He can't be fired. He's got a job for life. And he can go ahead and say, no, you're not going to do it. And you're right. He ends up with a de facto veto over the commander-in-chief and the president of the United States, and that's wrong.
So Lars, is this copycat syndrome that's going on with federal judges, or is there a more coordinated effort that is handpicked? Some entity is saying, okay, we've got this judge in this district. We know how they lean. Let's put them up to making this specific ruling.
I think that the latter is the case, Richard, because what they're doing is they judge shop. They go to a particular district. They know the history of the judge. This guy, and Trump is right to criticize him, this guy is a political partisan. When I was a reporter, I didn't give any money to political candidates. I didn't belong, other than being a registered Republican, I was not a member of any political group. And why? Because I needed to maintain my objectivity as a reporter and just tell people the facts, not my opinion. Now, as a talk show host, of course, I tell my opinion. I think judges should be the same. So when you find judges like this one who have given to political parties, in this case the Democrat Party, and some of these federal judges, one in particular, played a real key role on the Russia hoax, in supporting the Russia hoax as the chief judge of the FISA court, in supporting the FBI and some of its nefarious doings over the last decade. And you say, we know where this guy's coming from. So when the Democrats or the liberals want to bring a case, they bring it to that kind of judge. They don't have to have any coordination, Richard. They just say, we know what this guy is going to do with this case. And here's the safety valve. If you make a bad decision, you may be in the general manager's office later on this morning having a serious conversation. If a federal judge makes a stupid decision, then people say, well, you're going to be overruled in 6 months or a year or 2 years. He says, yeah, but you know what? My decision will hold for a period of time. And it will gum up the works for President Trump in doing things like removing 250 violent gang members. And you say, if it does it short term, there's even a police technique I ran into when I did ride-alongs with cops. They said sometimes there were cops I knew who'd say, I'll pull this guy over. I really don't have good legal cause to pull him over, but I know he's got dope in the trunk. I know he's a dealer, and we'll take his dope, and the case will get thrown out because it'll be a bad stop, but that doesn't matter. We just took 2 pounds of his dope, and we put a hurt in his get-along. They're using that same technique against Donald Trump, saying, my decision won't be upheld in the higher courts. I'll be overturned. But I don't care. There's no penalty for being overturned, like being called into the GM's office. And if I'm overturned a year or 2 years from now, I've still hurt Trump's effort to protect America.
I thought there was a really interesting social media post yesterday from President Trump in which he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, when a decision comes before the Supreme Court, there's no question which way the 4 Democrats on the court are going to vote. Why are we always asking a question about which way the 5 Republicans are going to go? And, maybe he's just thinking out loud on social media there, but it's a real question. And you don't know what John Roberts is going to do, and you don't know what Amy Coney Barrett's going to do, and sometimes we don't even know what Kavanaugh is going to do.
That is true, and I don't know why it is. The Democrats the 3 extreme liberals, not counting the 4th, but the 3 extreme liberals on the court, you always know what they're going to do.
100% of the time.
You never know what the Republicans, the conservatives are going to do, and I don't know why John Roberts folded up on us a long time ago. I'd pin it back to his decision on Obamacare, where he actually rewrote the law, in effect, to make Obamacare legal, when in fact, as presented to the Supreme Court, it was illegal. But Roberts is totally unpredictable, and now even Amy Coney Barrett is unpredictable. Now, they say that's because she's an originalist. I admire the late Justice Antonin Scalia, who was a real originalist. I'm not sure Amy Coney Barrett is an originalist, but they're using that to explain why she says, well, we have to decide it this way because that's how the Constitution reads in its original form. But you're right, it's become a real question mark. I thought we were going to have a solid, 6-3 court, and we don't. We still have an effectively split court.
There is an issue that in this legislative session in Mississippi has gotten a lot of play. It is an issue that is happening across the United States. Now, that said, I know you have a sponsor on your show that is an online-based pharmacy, so maybe you need to sit this conversation out. But PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers.
I just disclosed my conflict.
Well, that's fair. That's fair on the front end. The role that pharmacy benefit managers are playing in independent pharmacies, independent drugstores going out of business, and this imbalance in the way they receive compensation. What do we do with it? It's been a hot debate in Mississippi. I don't know that we're going to end up with any legislation that addresses it, but it's not just a Mississippi issue.
No, it's a national issue. And Richard, I would ask you to do the thing I've done. I've asked plenty of people in that lane, in the healthcare lane and specifically the pharma lane, what is the role and what is the benefit that we get from pharmacy benefit managers? And I've found that most of the people I ask who are experts in the field say, I really can't explain to you what it is they're supposed to do. Now, most of us, if you say, what do you do? Well, Lance is a producer, and I'm sure you've got engineers down the hall, and the salespeople sell advertising. They can all explain what they add to the product. What pharmacy benefit managers add, it seems they just suck up a lot of money, and I don't think they add anything to the product.
I had a conversation with a pharmacy owner last night because this has been a complicated issue that I've really had trouble wrapping my head around. Like genuinely, I admit that. And the only thing that I can come up with is they're kind of the clearinghouse with the insurance companies. Like if a pharmacy had to go directly to an insurance company for reimbursement, there's a significant amount of time and paperwork that takes away from them being able to do their normal job. That's the only benefit that I have been able to find that somebody has been able to clearly articulate to me is that, hey, they're kind of the clearinghouse for us. They're the entity that does that. But it doesn't really matter the industry. Being the middleman is a really profitable spot. And as best I can tell, that's what PBMs are.
Well, then let me make a comparison this way. It used to be that if I wanted a cab, I had to pick up the phone and call the cab company, and then they would see if a cab was available, and they would dispatch one. Uber and Lyft were creative destruction in that they bust that cycle. They put you, the customer, through an app, which does make some money, but it puts you directly in touch with a person, man or woman, driving a car. Mm-hmm. And that man or woman says, yes, I will come and pick you up and take you from A to B. And all of a sudden, it was a game changer in the entire industry. Tell me why the insurance companies haven't said, we're going to make it possible for these pharmacies to be able to deal directly with us, to Uber or Lyft. And maybe somebody's going to say, well, that's flawed because you can't look at it that way. But if you're trying to get a product from A to B, and Amazon is the same kind of thing. If you said, well, if I want to buy a pair of pants, I got to go down to a store and then see if they've got what I need and the right size and everything else. And then I'll buy it from them. And they are the middleman. The retail stores make money. And they usually have to have a fairly sizable markup to pay for all of their costs. And if all of a sudden a company can say, hey, we're going to sell you stuff direct from the people who make it, all of a sudden the price drops dramatically, doesn't it?
It certainly seems to. Maybe over time it goes back up. That seems to be how the markets work. But, yeah, at least initially. Lars Larson, the Lars Larson Show.
Should bust that, shouldn't it?
It certainly should.
Because the minute somebody says, hey, Lars, you were getting a pair of pants for $40, and because I don't spend a lot of money on my blue jeans, not like some people do. And if they said all of a sudden the price has gone back up to $90, there's somebody out there who says, Lars, I'll give them to you for $40.
I'll make them for $40. Thank you, Lars.
Make a small
your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross.
Nice early morning surprise.
On Super Talk, Mississippi.
You ever wonder what we do during the breaks? Like, I'll just give you behind the scenes. Sometimes you're scrambling to find a specific nugget for an interview that you're about to have. Sometimes you're skimming through X to see if there's anything relevant that's happening. And then sometimes you watch a video on your phone of forklifting as a sport with some of the most amazing, I have no idea what the announcer is saying play-by-play that I've ever heard. We got to file that away. We'll play that at some point, Lance.
I'm digging it.
I don't think right now is the time, as we are just about to visit with Scott Waller. Before we do that, I want to remind you that the next ACT test date is fast approaching, but there's still time to help your child maximize score results with Jumpstart Test Prep. Points gained on the ACT can save tens of thousands of dollars in college tuition. The Jumpstart Review is on demand online to meet your schedule with videos, subject area workbooks, instantly scored assessments, and practices that deliver complete content review with all the tips and strategies your child needs to work faster and better on test day. Order today online, jumpstarttestprep.com, and give your child the Jumpstart advantage. Glad to be with you. This is Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi. You can join the conversation on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. Always a pleasure to visit with Scott Waller. He is president and CEO of the Mississippi Economic Council. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Richard. How are you today?
I'm doing well. You may have heard the last segment with Lars Larson.
I did.
And I intentionally asked him a question about PBMs, which is an acronym that has, I think, become mainstream in Mississippi, in particular in this legislative session. We're talking about pharmacy benefit managers. We have heard a lot from independent pharmacy owners, people in that community, the Independent Pharmacists Association, and they are all talking about the need for change within the PBM world. In your role, you represent the Mississippi Economic Council. You have you run that organization. I think you've described it to me in the past as the number one cheerleader for business in the state of Mississippi and trying to do things. Tell me your position when we're talking about PBMs and this debate and the role they play.
Well, first and foremost, I will say that there needs to be some things put in place to protect, our independent pharmacists. There also needs to be some things that put regulations on PBMs. Our biggest concern is some of the things they're asking for we think really goes too far and is going to cause a problem. And that's why I want to really start by just saying first, I want to thank Speaker Jason White for his leadership on this issue, because in the original language of House Bill 1123, which he authored, it addressed what we've been hearing for the last few years from the independent pharmacists as their major complaint. What it did in its original form is it created stronger transparency on PBMs. It controls spread pricing, which they say is a big issue for them, and that needs to be handled. It also created a full accountability on all rebates, which is a big part of what we've heard. And then it also put in there that it would end retaliation. And then finally, it would create a fair and balanced audit system so that you could look and see what was happening within the PBM, and if they were in the wrong, it was their responsibility to pay for the audit, pay whatever fines were there, and did that. So that's what the bill did in its original form.
Okay.
What came out of the Senate changed the bill, and they claim it's not going to raise cost. Richard, we have multiple sectors of the economy that we represent. I've talked to a lot of people, and I've talked to their benefit people.
Who?
It will raise costs for businesses, and those businesses will be forced in some cases to pass those costs on down to their employees. What it does in two of the sections it changes does absolutely nothing to rein in PBMs. It will only rein costs for it. So what those two things are, real quick, is it will really negate negotiated pricing for drugs that the companies, mainly the companies that have self-insured self-funded plans, the ERISA plans that are out there, as well as group plans, they negotiate prices on the front end, and they set prices for certain drugs. Well, under one of the provisions, what's going to happen is it's going to raise prices for that drug if anyone files an appeal to raise the cost because they paid less than what they were reimbursed, which they can do now, and which they can make sure they're never losing money on those drugs. In fact, right now, about 90% of all drugs that independent pharmacists sell, even if they get reimbursed for less than what they pay for it, there's a mechanism. It was in 2020, House Bill 708, I think it was, passed a mechanism to allow them to appeal that, and when they do, that price automatically goes up to at least what they paid for it on the invoice that they show. And from that point forward, all drugs, every time they sell that drug, that's the cost they reimburse for. What they want to do in this legislation is make it a one-time instance where if one pharmacy files an appeal, then it goes up to that price for every pharmacy. Well, what's going to happen is a lot of the pharmacies in the networks that have been negotiated no longer have the ability to pay the negotiated price, which that negotiated price is a lot less, and the pharmacy is paying less for the drug and getting reimbursed because it goes up. And in a lot of ways, what you're going to see this happen is that single filing will set a new price for everyone. It will negotiate it will just eliminate the contract that's in place, and essentially it's really bad policy from that perspective. But this could actually end up benefiting the retail chain pharmacies more than the independent pharmacists because of that fact that it's just like with the scales of economy. When you're buying more of something, you pay less for it. Well, you're paying less for it. Your contract has you being reimbursed less for it. Well, now it's going to have you being reimbursed for whatever the highest rate is that someone out there may be paying. That's number one, going to raise costs. The second thing is it takes away a business's ability to manage and negotiate those prices through networks so that those prices can be passed along to the employees that they provide benefits for, that they provide health insurance for, which pharmacy, drug costs fall under that. So I will say this. I've talked to a lot of people in different industries across the state who have told us that, look, when we lose this ability to negotiate, our prices are going to go up. And these are the benefit managers within these companies that are doing everything they can to try to control prices. So those two things alone, the math just doesn't work for it not to raise prices. And sadly, none of that does anything to rein in PBMs because those prices are simply going to be passed along. Whatever the price is, it's going to go down. So, that's one of the things that they're saying that we don't have correct, but I will assure you, when I talk to every one of our benefit folks, they say this is a big deal for us.
All right, so do we go back to the original language of the bill that you were talking about that the speaker had, where you're controlling spread pricing, you're creating that audit trail, you are forcing the PBMs to be fair across the board? Is that an answer that is better for the business community
fully
and also helps pharmacies?
I think it ultimately will help pharmacies because then you can understand what the real issues are with the PBM and not with our benefit, with our planned programs that are out there that are trying to save money, because at the end of the day, nobody wants to go through that process. And I know we don't have a lot of time to discuss this today, but I'll tell this very quick story. In November, my agent came to me and said, okay, here's the news, as he said it. Here's what, to keep the same benefits that I'm currently providing to all of my employees at MEC, I was going to see over a 15% increase in my rates.
Okay.
We pay 100% of the premium costs, of the policy costs for employees. I had no choice to make some differences. I ended up talking to our staff, trying to figure out what was the best path forward. We raised deductibles, we raised the out-of-pocket, and I still, as the company, had a 5.4% increase in insurance rates just to be able to provide 100% paying of the policies for the employees that work for us. And those who have families and children, they also saw the increase because their portion of it went up as well. So we're seeing this always rise.
Or is that pharmacy, or are you rolling that all into one?
It's all into one. And one of the things I had to do this year is I had to increase the pharmacy copay. So yes, it's all in one. So all of those things, it's when you look at when you're sitting there looking at your effort to say I want to keep my costs down, then that's what you're looking at it from a holistic standpoint. It's major medical, it's primary, it's drugs, it's everything. So again, the whole reason for what we're trying to do and what our members do to provide the benefits to them is they're trying to control their cost. I talked to one of our members yesterday who says, I actually negotiate with 4 different PBMs for certain drugs in order to be able to give the people within our plan the best cost possible. If Section 7 of the bill, which eliminates the ability to have those networks, that goes away, then all those cost savings that he negotiates are gone. And now he's paying higher cost. There's just no way that this doesn't cost money. And I just want you to understand, I've seen a lot of the chatter on Facebook, on Twitter, and everything else. I've seen that we've also got, essentially been called, being dishonest, distruthful about this. Richard, this is MEC's 75th year. It's my 19th year.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, we always do everything possible to research an issue so we're telling the truth. So if every business out there is telling me...
Scott. We got a couple of minutes on the other side of the break.
Okay.
We'll pick this up. Scott Waller, President, CEO, Mississippi Economic Council. Got a few minutes left before we wrap things up on this Thursday.
From the back.
Reaching across the state and across the aisle. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Substitution, mass confusion, clouds inside your head. Involving all my energy.
Good to be with you this morning as we wrap things up. About 5 minutes left on Mornings with Richard Cross. Hope you have a wonderful Thursday. Scott Waller is my guest. He's the president and CEO of the Mississippi Economic Council. And Scott, if we need more time, you can come back next week. And we'll
I apologize for rushing at the end. I didn't realize we were going to carry it over, so I apologize for rushing.
No, all good. All good. Always appreciate you coming in. And I'm going to do this. But you mentioned Facebook comments, online comments, how long you've been in the job. I will vouch for Scott Waller's character. I will vouch for the job that he has done at the Mississippi Economic Council. I think he is a good man. I think he's an honest man. And I think he's doing what he believes is best for his organization and the members of his organization. But that also doesn't mean that Scott and I are going to agree on every single thing we talk about every single time we visit.
Bingo.
So here's the question that I would ask you. As an organization that represents the business community in the state of Mississippi, and you mentioned there are a lot of facets of the business community. I guess I would point to the fact that independent pharmacies are also a part of the business community, and in a lot of places are kind of the heartbeat of local communities. They are extremely important in the healthcare cog. You used the example that you were talking about with insurance a second ago. I spoke with a pharmacy owner just last night, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around the entire PBM conversation because it's really complicated. And he was, not for this to be a canary in the coal mine, but he said, there was a cancer drug that one of our customers needed, and we were going to lose $800. And I had to tell him, I need you to go look in this place. And it was one of the online or, by mail pharmacies that he went to. And said they were able to kind of follow the paper trail on it. He bumped into the guy and he said, yeah, that company ended up making over $1,000, whereas the local pharmacy was going to lose $800. I don't know all the ins and outs on how that works, but that does feel like it is unsustainable for independent pharmacies. Well, and that's just one example.
That's one example. And again, I've never claimed to be an expert in this area. That's why I rely on the people I talk to within the businesses. And I'm talking directly to the benefit experts, if you will.
Yeah.
That was one of the terms they made fun of on social media, but they are experts in their area. They know what they're doing. They're very qualified, and they're saying, look, that's just like the person I talked to that negotiates with 4 different PBMs, because there are certain drugs that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars for one dosage, and if you can negotiate that price down to $20,000 or whatever it will be, if you just buy it straight out of the market, just like that would be the case, that's what you're dealing with. I want to be clear. we in no way, shape, form, or fashion do not understand the value of independent pharmacists. They're extremely valuable within our communities. We hope and want them to stay around. What we don't want to see happen is that the cost of these drugs continue to rise as a result of taking away the ability to create these networks, to create these places where you can get those really expensive drugs for a whole lot less. So that you're not paying that $100,000, you're only paying $20,000 for that one dose that the claim is filed in the company, the insurance, whether it's self-insured or group, has to pay.
Isn't that a problem in and of itself, Scott? If we say a drug costs $100,000, but this company negotiates to be able to get it for $20,000, isn't that a problem with the entire industry in and of itself?
Well, those are very rare instances, though, Richard. That's the thing. Most retail pharmacies do not even carry those drugs. Those are done through specialty pharmacies. They're not done at your average over-the-counter type drug that you get. So that's what sets those apart. That's what drives up the cost for what they do, and that's also why you typically do not see those in the independent pharmacies. You do not see those in the retail pharmacies because they've been negotiated to say, okay, these people are experts on, number one, what this is and how to do it. And I think that's the biggest thing that you want to do. So at any rate, at the end of the day, it's all about being able to negotiate those prices because it comes down from the manufacturer through the PBM, through the insurance company, and ultimately it's the business, or in many cases, the employee's portion that they have to pay that we're most concerned about. So
we can continue this conversation, Scott, but just to put a bow on this for today, I just want to be clear. MEC was in support of the House bill that originally came out.
Yes, we were.
And continue to be so. And you think that is the bill that provides the most solution to the most people?
It begins to really dig into the issue in a way without raising costs for our businesses. And that's why we wanted to see that as the starting point for getting into the issue, digging into what was going on. If we could go back to that, then that would be the case. But I just want to say, I really have a hard time believing, based on what we talked about earlier, if all of our businesses are telling us this is what's going to happen under this legislation, and we have one other group saying it's not that we're trying to be negative toward that group. We're just saying we're trying to protect the employees. They these self-insured plans across the state represent almost 1 million people, well over 800,000 within just the self-insured, self-funded plans. Yeah. That doesn't include the state plan. That doesn't include the group plans, which are also affected by this. So hundreds of thousands of employees will be affected by these price increases.
Happy to continue this conversation in the days and weeks to come. Scott, thank you for coming on, President and CEO of Mississippi Economic Council. And thank you for being with us this morning on Mornings with Richard Cross. For Lance, I'm Richard. We'll talk to you down the line.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.